What if I told you that one of the greatest underdog stories of all time wasn't fiction? What if a simple boy, with nothing more than a sling and a stone, faced down and defeated the most fearsome warrior of his era? This isn't a myth or a legend. It's the true account of a young man whose faith in God was far greater than any giant he could ever face. Picture this: a sun-scorched valley, two armies poised for war. On one side, the forces of Israel, led by King Saul. On the other, the Philistines, and with them, their champion, a colossal warrior named Goliath. He stood nearly 10 feet tall, a mountain of a man, his bronze armor gleaming menacingly under the desert sun. His very presence cast a long shadow of fear over the Israelite camp. For 40 long days, this spectacle repeated itself. Every morning and every evening, Goliath would stride out from the Philistine lines, his voice booming across the valley like thunder. "Choose a man. Send him down to fight me," he would roar. "If he can kill me, we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves." His challenge was a taunt, a mockery of their God and their courage. But in the face of such an intimidating foe, the army of Israel was paralyzed. Not one soldier, not one veteran warrior dared to step forward. Fear had completely gripped them. Then one day, a new face appeared on the battlefield. Not a soldier, but a young shepherd named David. He was the youngest of his brothers, sent by his father simply to deliver bread and cheese to his siblings on the front lines and to bring back news of their well-being. He was just a boy, likely still in his teens, with a shepherd's staff in his hand and a heart full of youthful energy. But as David arrived, he heard it. The thundering voice of Goliath, blaspheming and defying the armies of the living God. And while everyone else trembled, something different ignited within David. It wasn't fear. It was a righteous fire. His spirit burned with indignation. He turned to the soldiers cowering nearby and asked, with genuine disbelief, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" The soldiers, probably amused and a bit annoyed by his youthful bravado, just pointed out the obvious. They talked about the king's reward for anyone who could defeat the giant, but their words were empty, laced with the same fear that kept them rooted to the spot. Even David's own brothers scolded him, accusing him of coming just to watch the battle out of pride. But David wasn't there for a spectacle. He was there because his conscience, his faith, couldn't let this challenge go unanswered. News of this bold young shepherd quickly reached King Saul. When David was brought before the king, he didn't hesitate. He looked Saul in the eye and said, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul was skeptical, to say the least. He looked at David, young, small, with no armor, no military training, and then thought of Goliath, a warrior from his youth. "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him," Saul said. "You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David had a different kind of resume. His battlefield wasn't one of men and swords, but of wilderness and predators. He calmly explained to the king, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it." He wasn't bragging, he was testifying. He was building a case for his faith. He then delivered the line that changed everything. "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." He knew his strength didn't come from his own muscles or skill, but from the God who had been his protector in the lonely watches of the night. Seeing this unshakable conviction, Saul finally relented. "Go, and the Lord be with you." He tried to equip David with his own royal armor, a bronze helmet and a coat of mail. But David was a shepherd, not a knight. The armor was heavy, clunky, and unfamiliar. He took a few steps and knew it wouldn't work. "I cannot go in these," he said, "because I am not used to them." So, he took them off. Instead, David armed himself with what he knew. He walked to a nearby stream, the same kind of stream he'd known his whole life, and carefully selected 5 smooth stones, placing them in his shepherd's bag. With his staff in one hand and his trusty sling in the other, he walked out to face the giant. He chose to rely on God's provision and his own God-given gifts rather than the world's definition of strength. When Goliath saw this boy approaching, armed with nothing more than a stick and a sling, he was insulted. He bellowed with laughter and contempt. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" he jeered. He cursed David by his gods and promised to feed his flesh to the birds and the wild animals. The entire Philistine army probably joined in the laughter. The Israelites likely watched in horrified silence, certain they were about to witness the slaughter of this foolish boy. But David did not flinch. His voice, though young, rang out across the valley, clear and filled with a power that came from beyond himself. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin," David declared. "But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." With that declaration of faith, the debate was over. David didn't wait for the giant to charge. He broke into a run, closing the distance between them. As he ran, he reached into his bag, pulled out a stone, and placed it in his sling. The armies watched, breathless. He began to swing the sling over his head. Once, twice, 3 times, building momentum, his eyes locked on his target. Then, he released it. The stone flew through the air with incredible speed and precision. It wasn't a lucky shot. It was a divinely guided missile. It struck Goliath squarely on his forehead, the only vulnerable spot in his armor. The stone sank into his skull. The giant's mocking expression froze. He staggered for a moment, his massive frame swaying, and then he crashed face first onto the ground. The earth itself seemed to tremble from the impact. A deafening silence fell over the valley. Disbelief, shock, awe. The impossible had just happened. The invincible champion was defeated. The boy who was too small, too young, too inexperienced had won. When the Philistines saw their hero fall, panic erupted. They turned and fled with the Israelite army, now roaring with courage, chasing after them. David's victory wasn't because he was a better warrior. He won because his perspective was different. He saw the giant, yes, but he saw an even greater God. He won because he believed that the one fighting for him was infinitely more powerful than the problem in front of him. And this story is for us today. We all face giants in our lives. They might not be 10-foot warriors, but they can feel just as intimidating. Giants of fear, doubt, anxiety, addiction, or overwhelming discouragement. They stand in our path and roar, telling us we're too weak, that we'll never succeed, that we should just give up. But the story of David reminds us that we do not have to fight these giants in our own strength. Like David, we can face them with the faith that the battle is not ours, but the Lord's. We can pick up our stones, the gifts, the faith, the promises of God, and run toward the challenge, not away from it. Because the Bible tells us, the Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. God saw a king in a shepherd boy, and he sees the potential, the strength, and the victor in you, even when all you see is the giant. Thank you so much for watching. If this story encouraged you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content that explores these timeless truths. We'd love to have you as part of our community. God bless, and we'll see you in the next video.